Hey there, Saki here from Saki Tech, and in today's video we are going to do a full comparison between the iPhone 10 versus the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. Now the Galaxy Note 8 was released in September 2017 while the iPhone 10 in November 2017, so they're not that far apart from each other. Apple and Samsung dominate the smartphone market under the biggest supply. As such, people quickly ask questions such as, is the iPhone 10 better than the Galaxy Note 8, or is the Galaxy Note 8 better than the iPhone 10? And of course, the most popular request of all is tell me which one is better. And that's exactly what I'm going to tell you in this video by doing a full side-by-side comparison of every aspect of each smartphone. So let's dive in and discover it. Before we do dive in, if you do use Twitter or Instagram, make sure to follow me and follow me at Saki Tech. So the first thing I want to take a look at is the build and design. So both the iPhone 10 and the Note 8 have similar build quality. Front and back you will find glass on both smartphones with a metal band around the edges. This makes for a high-end build, therefore both smartphones feel like $1 million when you hold them. When you move on to the design versions, they both have massive frontal displays and they both look gorgeous. Note 8 has a large and tall display that dominates the screen, leaving tiny bezels on the top and bottom, while the iPhone 10 strives to fill the entire front with a screen, almost succeeding in something like 39. You will observe, however, that the bezels on the side of the display tend to be thinner and reinforced with signature dual bright LEDs. All in all, I must say that the design is a subjective choice, but in my opinion, Note 8 still seems to come ahead slightly, which seems more clean and overall its slight demeanor could have been eliminated by going for the tiny bezels, which does serve as a major function known as the Face ID, which we will talk about in a little bit. Now both smartphones come with water resistance, but the Note 8 once again gains a slight lead with a higher IP68 grade rating as opposed to the iPhone 10's IP67 rating. Rest assured, both phones can easily handle a rain or an accidental drop in a puddle of water. Both smartphones also support Bluetooth 5.0, which is the latest standard in Bluetooth, which is going to allow for better quality audio and also for lower Bluetooth range. That's good stuff. So the Note 8 retains the headphone jack, which may or may not matter to some people, but the iPhone 10 sports dual stereo speakers as a response. It doesn't have the headphone jack, but it does have two great sounding stereo speakers that take the win over the Note 8's single mono speaker. So to summarize, Note 8 certainly has a slight lead in this category. It does have higher water resistance rating and a cleaner look overall, although the build is equally well done on both smartphones. In my opinion, stereo speakers have a higher importance than a headphone jack, so iPhone 10 also scores some points in that respect. Now let's move on to the processor, memory, and storage. iPhone 10 sports a powerful hexa-core A11 processor with 3GB of RAM and can be acquired with 64GB of storage for the base model, or if you want to upgrade, you can get 256GB of storage. The Galaxy Note 8 also sports a powerful processor, an octa-core Snapdragon 835 CPU or an Exynos 8895 variant in non-US markets with 6GB of RAM. Note 8 will only be available in a 64GB storage option, but you can easily add up to 256GB of extra storage using a micro SD card, a feature that the iPhone 10 lacks. Adding extra storage to the Note 8 is much cheaper. You can get a 128GB micro SD card for around $50 and just load up on photos, videos, and any media if desired. With the iPhone 10, the jump from 64GB to 256GB will cost you $150. Now if we move on to the benchmarks, it is immediately clear that the iPhone 10 has quite a bit of raw horsepower that blows expectations. Note 8 is not a slow phone by any means, but iPhone's A11 Bionic chip has accomplished some incredible power output, which will possibly translate into great looking buttery smooth games and top-level augmented reality experience. In this category, the numbers can't be ignored, and hence the win goes to the iPhone 10 in terms of processing power, which is the highlight. Now let's talk about the dimensions. The iPhone X measures 143.6 millimeters in height, 70.9 millimeters wide, and 7.7 millimeters thick. It weighs 174 grams. The Galaxy Note 8 measures 162.5 millimeters in height, 74.8 millimeters wide, and 8.6 millimeters thick. It weighs 195 grams. So the Note 8 is clearly the larger device. Because of its lower height, the iPhone X does have better reachability, but comes with a smaller screen. On the flip side, the Note 8 comes with a loss of reachability, but more screen real estate. This brings me to a much more important category. Let's talk about the actual display. iPhone X has a 5.8-inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1125 by 2436 with 458 pixels per inches. The Note 8 has a 6.3-inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1440 by 2960, which is known as the Quad HD Plus, with 521 pixels per inches. Both smartphones support HDR playback. So basically, Apple has finally caught up to Samsung in display quality and features present. Both of these smartphones have fantastic displays that look stunning from every angle. They're not dull, they're very vibrant. The Note 8 is sharp and clear and is slightly more saturated. The iPhone X is also sharp and clear, but with less saturation and better color accuracy. Overall, I cannot recommend one over the other as they both look very clean and crispy. The one thing I could mention is some people may be swayed towards the Note 8 because of its larger display, and some people may be swayed towards the iPhone X because of its smaller form factor, but still a relatively large display. I will consider this category a draw, top-notch, high-quality displays either way. Let's move on and talk about the software, a very important category. Let's start with the basics. The Galaxy Note 8 runs on the latest version of Android, while the iPhone X runs on the latest version of iOS. When comparing iOS and Android, it's hard not to look two big differences. Number one is customization. Android system is a much more open-ended environment and allows for extensive customization via widgets, themes, and home screen tweaking. You can tweak an Android smartphone to fit your personal sense of style. iOS, on the other hand, when it comes to home screens, is just a static grid of app icons with very basic customization capabilities, such as being able to change your wallpaper. On the other hand, iOS does offer some more polished apps and a greater gaming experience. Just about every game on the iPhone 8, including graphically demanding games, will run at maximum performance with smooth and lag-free gameplay, a feat Galaxy Note 8 won't be able to match with every game. Additionally, the Apple App Store does yield a larger number of quality apps as opposed to the Google Play Store. So if you care about apps and games and how well they perform, this is certainly something to pay very close attention to. Beyond those two differences, Note 8 is certainly more productive and feature-rich in the software department. It allows for split-screen multitasking, which means you can run two windows side by side at the same time, and the larger display on the Note 8 certainly enhances the whole multitasking experience. The Note 8 also has the Edge functionality. You can swipe inwards from the edges of the display to bring up the Edge panels. These panels can give you access to app shortcuts, weather widgets, tools such as a compass or a digital ruler, a calculator, and much more. On top of that, it is fully customizable, the Edge panels. You can actually add or remove a bunch of panels based on your needs. As a counterattack, the iPhone 8 does have 3D Touch, which is a pressure-sensitive screen that allows you to access quick actions and other gestures by pressing down on the screen with a certain amount of pressure. But then the Note 8 re-counters with the S Pen, which is a fantastic tool designed to offer precision note-taking and sketching on your Note 8. Yes, you can literally draw a masterpiece right on your Note 8 if you have the skill and patience for it. Additionally, you get access to the unique S Pen software functions such as the Air command menu that could boost productivity, and frankly, it is simply cool. To emphasize the amount of functionality the S Pen adds to your device, just watch the video in the description box below titled S Pen Tips. So it is clear from everything I mentioned that the Galaxy Note 8 is more customizable, feature-rich, and productive overall, including having that S Pen. However, where Apple wins is the app ecosystem, which is no joke. Like I said, Apple App Store will offer superb gaming experience and provide more polished and quality apps in comparison to the Play Store. For app-driven people, this might be important enough to stick with Apple. Now let's move on to the camera. Let's get the numbers out of the way. The Note 8 sports a dual rear camera system. It has a regular wide-angle 12 megapixel camera with an aperture of f1.7 and a 12 megapixel telephoto camera with an aperture of f2.4. iPhone X also has a dual camera system. It has a regular wide-angle 12 megapixel camera with an aperture of f1.8 and a 12 megapixel telephoto camera with an aperture of f2.4. The primary reason the telephoto lens exists is to give you two things: 2x optical zoom and special effects for portrait shots, including the popular bokeh effect. So which camera is better? It's hard for me to say as usual. They both take razor sharp photos in daytime and have great low light performance, meaning you can take photos at nighttime and actually get a clean photo without too much noise. If you are an average consumer, which most people are, you will be satisfied with either one of these cameras. And like I said, both phones have a secondary camera which allows for 2x optical zoom, which is great to have, and the ability to create stunning portrait shots with the special bokeh effect. iPhone X has a slight advantage here. It can actually record 4K videos at 60 frames per second, or you can tone it down to 30 frames per second, but the Galaxy Note 8 can only record in 4K at 30 frames per second. So in the video department, the iPhone X has a little lead on the Note 8. Finally, the Note 8 has an 8 megapixel front-facing camera, while the iPhone X has a 7 megapixel front-facing camera. Both cameras are great for selfies and video conferencing. So what is the story with the camera? Let me repeat. If you are an average consumer, and most people are, you will be satisfied with either one of these cameras because they take fantastic pictures. They're both world-class smartphone cameras. Let's move on to the battery. So the iPhone X has a longer battery life after a full charge. It will give you maybe 1 hour of extra life in comparison to the Note 8 based on my tests. However, both phones are able to last a full day with a full charge with medium to heavy use. Both the iPhone X and the Note 8 offer wireless charging using the same Qi standard. Note 8 has a fast wired charging out of the box with the included charging adapter. However, the iPhone X will require you to purchase the fast charging compatible wall adapter if you wish to utilize that fast charging option, but both phones do have fast wired charging. So the iPhone X has a slight lead in the battery life, but the Note 8 gives faster wired charging cable included with your purchase. Both phones have wireless charging. Let's call this one a draw. Let's move on to biometrics and security. So in this category, the Note 8 leads in overall tech. It has 3 ways to unlock your smartphone: a fingerprint sensor, an iris scanner, and a basic facial recognition tool. The iPhone X only has 1 way to unlock your smartphone: the new Face ID. Now the Face ID on the iPhone X is far superior to the facial recognition tool found on the Note 8. Even Samsung does not recommend using the facial recognition tool on the Note 8 as a reliable security measure, so we could potentially discard that option on the Note 8. So what we have left is an iPhone X with a state-of-the-art Face ID system versus the Note 8 with a state-of-the-art iris recognition tool plus the proven fingerprint sensor. As I said, the Note 8 does have more options on the table, so the win goes to the Note 8 in this category. Now let's talk about pricing, and then we will tie it all in a conclusion. The Note 8 has an official price of $950, but I've seen it go on sale for as low as $850, so it fluctuates between $850 and $950 in the United States, perhaps on Amazon.com, and the iPhone X starts at $1,000 for the 64